Shalom, Kahala Yahweh, Bashem Yashai, Bashem Kokodash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Israel. Peace and mercy to the elect who are the house of David, reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 1/3 of Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the events taking place right now over in the land of Israel and of the recent attacks which took place just a few days ago, and how all these events and the things going on now and leading into World War III, how they were all planned over 100 years ago. But let's read this first before we get into that. This is 1 John 2:18. Little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard, that Antichrist shall come. Even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. So real quick, I just want to explain that what the world has been programmed to believe by these churches and worldwide religions, that in the last days there's going to come up one single man, and this guy is going to be the most charming and deceptive man, and he's going to take over the entire world, and he's going to simply lead the world into destruction, and this is going to be the Antichrist. This is a false narrative which the Bible does not speak about. Okay, the Bible, as you can see here, tells us that there are many antichrists. And when you get into this word, anti simply means to go against. Christ means appointed, right? The Christos, the anointed ones. Okay, so basically going against God's will. Now, today, the world is full of antichrists, right? From your average churchgoer to your full-on LGBT commando. Even the little old granny down the street, she's more likely an antichrist. And why is that? Well, because the majority of the world does not actually understand what the Bible is talking about. And instead, what they actually worship is a man-made false religion, right? Like Christianity, Catholicism, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, and so on. People do not follow the Bible, they follow religion. Like I said, there are many antichrists in this world, but there is the top antichrist, and those top antichrists would be the nation of Edom, or what we would refer to them today as the so-called Caucasian race. And this also includes the so-called Jewish people, or the Israelis, because they are just as Caucasian as your average American, French, English, Australian, Canadian, Edomite. However, the Ashkenazis, the Israelis, back in the 700s AD, they converted to a man-made religion which they created that is based off of the heritage of the Israelites, and they refer to this man-made religion as Judaism. All right, and they had practiced this man-made religion in a way to try to observe and try to convert into being Israelites. But again, you cannot convert to being in a bloodline, just like you can't convert or say that you're part of your neighbor's family, right? You can never be part of that family through the bloodline, right? From the moment you're born, you are stuck in that line. Now, next, now that we understand that the true Antichrist are these Edomites, okay, let's go ahead and see what these Antichrist nation, or what the Antichrists are bringing forward. And again, when I say Antichrist, I'm talking about the nation of Edom. Well, let's read this first. This here is a comment from this man, Dennis Healy. And to give you an idea of who this man is, he's basically a big-time English politician, right? That says Dennis Winston Healy, Baron Healy. He was, it says, was a British Labour Party politician who served as Chancellor of the Exchequer from 1974 to 1979 and as Secretary of State of Defense from 1964 to 1970. He remains the longest serving Defense Secretary to date. He was a Member of Parliament from 1952 to 1992 and was Deputy Leader of the Labour Party from 1980 to 1983. So for the most part, this guy was a bigwig within the English government. And his words, when he says something, he knows what he's talking about. So let's go back and let's read what he had to say about world events. He says, world events do not occur by accident. They are made to happen, whether it is to do with national issues or commerce. And most of them are staged and managed by those who hold the purse strings. You see that? So you have one of the top Edomites and one of the top Edomite nations telling you straight up that the events which happen on the world stage are orchestrated and planned by those who control the purse strings. The bankers. Who are the bankers? Who are the people who run everything? Well, none other than Amalek, right? These so-called Israelis. But, you know, I'm not going to get into that as I just got into that yesterday. But today we're going to speak about the famous Albert Pike letter that was written to an Italian politician named Giuseppe Mazzini. And this was written on August 15th, 1871. So again, well over 100 years ago, right? And before we get into this, let me kind of give you a breakdown of what's happening, right? This letter was written before any of the world wars took place. There's a movie called Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, which came out, I believe, in 2011 or 2012. And it was basically where Sherlock Holmes was following this military guy, right? Or he was basically a professor, but he also he had a weapons factory and medical factory, and ultimately Sherlock Holmes revealed that he was behind setting up the world war, or the upcoming world war. He was basically selling weapons to both sides, and he was fomenting reasons for these nations to go to war with each other. Well, though this was a movie, it was based off of true events. And that true event would be what we are going to be reading right here. So you see, Albert Pike, this man here on the right, he is what you would refer to as a 33-degree Freemason. Again, the Freemasons, for the most part, are the businessmen or the managers of the Satanist order upon the face of the earth. The lower rank Freemasons, these guys are just clubsmen or fraternity people that are seeking to do good but make connections. It's not until you get to the higher echelons of this organization that you actually enter the true brotherhood and start to learn the truth behind Freemasonry. Well, this man here, he is a bigwig. He wrote some very important Freemasonry books that are used today. I think Rules and Dogma, which for the most part lay the laws for the Freemasonry sect. Well, he was writing to this man, this politician, Giuseppe Mazzini, and he was basically breaking it down to him why he should join the Freemasonry order, or basically side with the Freemasons and help them get their agenda moved along. So Albert Pike here is describing to him the 3 world wars that they are planning to ultimately take over the world. Now, let's go ahead and start and read here. It says, the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia, right? Basically the kings. And that happened when you go to 1917, you had World War I, 1914, basically the same year that the Balfour Declaration went into force, you had the Bolshevik Revolution, which was fomented and ultimately took out the ruling class, the king, King Nicholas, and his whole family and all the nobles. They killed them all off, and they installed communism to overthrow the powers of the czars in Russia and to make that country a fortress of atheistic communism. So the USSR, if that rings any bells, remember how it was like an anti-religion country, and it was basically a hotbed of communism there in the 80s. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and the Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy other governments and in order to weaken the religions. And when they're talking about the destruction of other governments, excuse me, they're talking about after Amalek took over Russia, a few years later, you have World War II. Then you also have the Chinese communist takeover, right? This is what Albert Pike was talking about, right? And this happened after World War II. And it says, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions, right? This is why in China they basically destroyed religions over there, or at least the Christian religion. And then he goes on to talk about World War II and how they have that planned out. It says the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascist Nazis and the political Zionists, so-called Jews. This war must be brought about so that the Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism is strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So you see that? So after creating the whole World War II debacle with the Nazis and the Israelis, the Zionists, and basically planting the Zionists into Palestine, right, sneaking them into that land, that they would then continue to build up the communist powers around the world. This is the reason, which if you didn't know, why America in the 80s gave the USSR, Russia, tons and tons of money to basically keep it afloat. And why is that? Well, because they had to do this, right? They had to make sure that Christendom, which is basically the westernized power, America, right? Back when it was all about religion. Remember when Ronald Reagan said that the Bible was the book of the land, or the book of the America, or the law of the land, right? They had to basically make sure that America didn't go so big and so powerful that it couldn't have an ally. They couldn't have a Coke without a Pepsi, okay? So this is why the USSR, for the most part, was kept going for so long by the world elite powers. Next, let's talk about World War III, where we are currently at. Okay, he says, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists, right, the Israelis, and the leaders of Islamic world, the Arab nations, okay, Ishmael. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic technological exhaustion. Is not America and all the other worlds right now, all the other nations sending all their money to Ukraine? And what do you think these other nations are going to do now that Israel is at war? They're going to be sending tons and tons of money to aid Israel. Okay, they're going to be sending as much resources as possible, as much weapons. Right? America just announced that they were going to be sending $8 billion over there to Israel. Right? So you see, this is all part of the plan. Continuing, we shall unleash the nihilist. Nihilists would be like the BLM, Antifa, the Proud Boys, right? All these kind of like extreme, like fringe groups that are being pushed by the media, which is so obvious that these are mainstream media created movements. And the atheists would be ultimately like your LGBT, trans movements, basically the counterculture, okay? The woke culture, the communist, right? The woke agenda. It says, we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, right? Isn't that happening right now, right? Everybody's worried about men in the women's bathrooms, what is a woman and all this type of stuff, right? This is the social cataclysm that Amalek is setting up, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, right? Wokeness, okay? Origins of savagery and of most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, right? The citizens is referring to the regular people, right? People who just want to be left alone, or the traditional Americans, right? It says, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilizations. This part here where it says the minority revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. So you see why we've told all the people who are in the LGBT groups and the trans groups that they're only being used and they're referred to as the useful idiots in the Communist Manifesto. Right? See, what's happening is that Amalek, these Edomites, the Antichrist, they are setting up all these revolutionary groups to go against the traditional American way. And they're gonna continue to allow it to get so bad. They're gonna allow the lone shooter who's a trans person, or the teachers who are indoctrinating kids, and they're gonna let it get out of hand to the point where your average day American, they're going to see the corruption. They're going to see all the demoralization that's happening. And people are going to snap. And they're going to literally go out. And we're going to experience death in the streets. Right? And this is what these devils want. They want this chaos. They want to create order out of chaos. And this is how they're going to do it. Right? Next, let's read the next part. It says, the multitude, right? The regular people, disillusioned with Christianity, right? How did the population of America and for the world, for that matter, become disillusioned with Christianity? Well, these devils, they planted all these pedophiles and all these Satanists within the churches. And how did they do that? Through the Jesuit arm of the Vatican Church. And again, if the Jesuits are, for the most part, the Knights Templars that managed to infiltrate the church or the Vatican and are empowered today. Pope Francis, which is the current Pope, is the very first Jesuit Pope, or should I say Knights Templar Pope. Okay? So he says, so that's how the world has become disenchanted with religion for the most part, and namely Christianity and Catholicism. It says, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits, right, basically starving spirits, will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, right, worship, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism. Right? Remember, atheism isn't just atheism. This is the LGBT movements, the trans movement, and all the woke movements, right? Both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So you see that, Akim? This is the plan of the world elites. This is what we are currently living through right now. This is Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So we are about to go into World War III officially, Akim. We've been in one stage or another, tiptoeing to World War III with Ukraine, Syria, Taiwan, Iran, North Korea debacles. But now that Israel is in the fight and they've literally declared war, and they're, for the most part, they're going to annihilate out the Gaza Strip, which is going to rise up the Arabs. This is it. They're about to start World War III. This is Matthew 24 and 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So we are going into the beginning of sorrows, Akim. The next 14 months here in America are going to be crazy, because that's how long we have till the elections. So you're going to see all these crazy things come out. You're going to see people starting to snap. You're going to see nations rising up against nations. These devils are going to bring out the famine that they've been working on these last couple of years by killing off all these animals, destroying all these food products, shutting down all these stores. And the pestilence are going to roll right in. Because why? Because these devils weren't satisfied with their first pandemic. They're going to bring another one. Okay? And there's a lot of ignorant people out there who are still believing them and are going to line up for the snake bites. So this is happening, and the same day that the attacks happened on Israel, we had those 3 large earthquakes around the world, along with all the other hundreds of earthquakes that have been happening just in this past year. Okay, we're there, Akim. We are in the beginning of sorrows, and this is when the Antichrist is starting to reveal his plan, right? And the thing is that a lot of people, they can't see it. And that's because, just like this image, they're focusing on one thing, one specific thing. And unlike us, who have gone into multiple arenas of knowledge, we've studied, we've researched, and most importantly, we've looked into the Bible, and we have the truth thanks to our teachers, starting with the apostles and the elders on down, that have taught us this truth. And through the mercy of the Lord, He's revealed it onto us. We've been able to spiritually step back and see the whole picture. We now see that this is an analogy for something that's happening in our world, right? Some people think it's the Jews, right? Some people think it's the bankers. Some people think it's the billionaires. Some people think it's the Illuminatis. Other people think it's a Satanist. But really, when we spiritually step back, we realize it's the Edomites. It is the true Antichrist of the world. And here, to speak truth out of his own mouth, is this man, David Spangler, who made this quote about the new coming age that Esau is trying to bring forward. He says, "No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the new age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation." David Spangler is a famous author and a bigwig at the UN nations, right? He's part of this whole cabal system, okay? And he's told us plain out what's going on, right? You're not going to be able to take part of the CBDC digital money system without getting the mark of the beast, the RFID implantable microchip that's going to go in your hand or your forehead. You're not going to be able to participate in society without that mark, or without the required jabs or the other things that these devils are going to make mandatory, right? What is it? You want to eat meat? Well, if it's not allowed on your monthly rations, then you're not going to eat it. You want to go on vacation? Well, if it's further than the 1,500 miles that they're going to allow you to travel once per year, then it's not allowed. See, these devils, they are making waves and moving fast to try to accomplish their goal. But that shit ain't going to work. This is 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. The great falling away has already happened, and we are now starting to come up from that, right? We are starting to come back in to the house of Israel. The Negro, Latino, Native Americans are waking up, and we're coming back to claim our true heritage. And these devils know it, and they're scared. And this is why they're bringing out all these anti-speech laws. They're trying to take down the internet as we know it. Because, you see, they're being revealed. The Lord is showing the world who these Edomites are and what they're doing. Right now, I think we're only like 2 days after the attacks over there in Israel. And you're already starting to see hundreds of videos on social media and on alternate video sites, because you can't find shit on YouTube, right? Anything that talks about false flags or what's really happened over there. But when you go to BitChute, Odyssey, all these other stations, you can see lots of videos talking about how these attacks, they couldn't have happened naturally, that it was all a false flag, and it was set up so that way the Amalek could have a reason to go in and annihilate these Palestinians and get Gaza back. You see, the truth no longer is able to be subdued by these Edomites, right? Their lies aren't working like they used to. The world doesn't believe them, okay? This is Revelations 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And that's what's happening right now, Akim. These Edomites, they know that they got a short time, and they can see that they're hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And they know that they're off schedule. This is why there was a video of them showing that the UN and the World Economic Forum have come together to sign a treaty to speed up the agenda of the 2030 plan. You see, these devils are trying to move faster because the Lord has sped up time, right? These devils are losing, and you can see it. Though that's not going to stop them, unfortunately, from trying to pursue their agenda. So again, don't get caught up in this whole Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, right? It's all planned, and these devils are only going to use it to bring forward this World War III, which is going to bring a lot of crazy shit, right? And especially with all these immigration issues that are coming. Again, they're not just Latinos that are coming over the border, man. It's people from all over, from nations that hate America and are basically being sent here to bring it down, right? Fulfilling another prophecy talking about how they shall go up to the city of unwalled villages, right? This is all by prophecy, Akim. So either way, I just wanted to cover this letter from Albert Pike, because I wanted to show all you, Akim, if you haven't seen it. It's pretty crazy that they revealed this over 100 years ago. So hopefully you now know it. So till next time, let's go ahead and give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai B'Hashem Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.